I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, OK Collections 283, for submitting such a great looking article right here. C++ is an absolute blast. Okay, look at this guy. Look at that deep V. That's like the deepest V a V can get. I want you to ask yourself an honest question. When was the last time you actually had fun in programming? Just this last week. Looking back, I don't think I've actually had fun in programming for close to 10 years. That's actually a really sad statement. I actually want to see this. Type 1 in the chat if you have not had fun in like a while. Okay, there are some ones. I want to ask a follow-up question. Why are you not having fun? Doing grunt work code? Burnout? Yeah. Even when I hate it, I'm still having fun. Bloated code bases everywhere, not fun, yeah. Boring shit programming at work all the time, yeah. It's all about business and not interesting problems, yeah, that's fair. Forced to use a MicroPython as the final product. Okay, yeah, that could be pretty painful. I still remember it was not too long ago. I really am not a fan of UI work. I've never loved building UIs. I've just never been that person, okay? I've just never wanted to be that person. Even when I was hired as a senior UI engineer at Netflix, I really didn't do UI. I came from a job in which I did all like the touch motions and everything for a device. I kind of did like different things. Yeah, it's like UI related, but it's more on the library side. And I quickly got pulled out of my first UI job. And I remember really disliking my first UI job. And then I'd worked on a library for quite some time, and I ended up leaving Netflix, but then getting brought back in to come back to Netflix. And when I came back, I worked on the UI again. And I still remember setting into my heart at some point that I'm going to enjoy what I'm working on, despite it being the UI. And I actually found a lot of joy in setting myself up to just say, I'm going to enjoy the thing I'm doing. I'm going to find the best way to do it, and I'm going to do it the best I can possibly do it. There's this idea that if you say that, oh, I really hate doing this thing, that thing will feel it just feels more painful. Like the more you focus on the thing that you dislike, the more you're going to feel it being negative. But you can always find like joy or good things and stuff. And so I kind of realized that I just started going, okay, I'm going to find something that I really like, and I'm going to do that thing that I really like about it. And then even though I'm doing a task I don't like, I'm going to try to like find the motivation, like the good parts of it, as opposed to getting burnt out. I love process automation. Give me a task that needs to be codified, and I'm one happy nerd. Yeah, I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of automation type stuff, or I'm a tools guy. I've always been a tools guy. I'm going to continue to write tools. I realized that I don't write enough tools for my stream, and that's kind of like a big change I'll be making. Okay, sorry, huge detour there. I don't have fun with JavaScript, Python, Ruby, C, nothing. When I say fun, I mean you genuinely are excited to work on your project, and the whole time you work on it, you're thinking, damn, this is a blast. I can't believe that wild idea I had actually worked. Yeah, that I can't believe it actually worked thing gets smaller and smaller. That's true. For example, I am working on a little roguelike game, and I had the idea. I bet I could use this Dijkstra's algorithm to connect rooms during map generation by inverting the map and then running it. I'd probably make really cool carved-out tunnels between rooms. I then had the greatest time figuring out how to pull it off, and I didn't feel like C++ got in my way. I managed to pull it off and learned a lot from the process. Then I had the idea, I wonder if I can still make my FTX UI user interface and just render it directly into the SFML renderer window. Sure enough, I could totally do that too. And not only was it not that difficult, but I learned a lot about C++ does Unicode, or how C++ does Unicode. Apparently, I still can't read. We're trying here, folks. None of this was easy. It was just all possible, and I can't think of too many ways C++ would stop me from doing what I want. That's fun. Yeah, I think I totally do get this. The drive to do something that's difficult is very appealing. This is a very appealing thing, and I don't think it really matters about the language as much as it matters about the difficulty of the problem. I want to make something. I don't know if I can actually do it, and then going from the path of not being able to think, or thinking that you can't do something, into realizing you can do something, there's just something about that is just so rewarding. That is the reason why I have unwavering confidence that I can start any project. Unwavering confidence. Any project at all, I can just start it. I can start it, I can try it. It's the feeling of power and possibilities, absolutely. Now, will I finish the project? Maybe not, but I can definitely finish the problem. Big difference. Nodders, yeah. I think programmers have lost the story of why they get into programming in the first place. I know I didn't learn to code just so I can make a bunch of billionaires more billions. Yep, facts upon facts. I started coding because I wanted to be able to make levels in a game that was like a Zelda-like game called Grail or Graal. I'm not really sure how to say it. I didn't get into programming so that I can fight an immutable rendering engine into finally showing a cornflower blue button. The impossible. I definitely didn't get into programming just to make a few authoritarians at the top of a random open source project happy. Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I think it's a bit disrespectful to call. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's a little silly to call it authoritarians or to insult people who run projects. Like, you got to remember that if you run an open source project, you have to run it in only one possible way, which is like an authoritarian. Like, there's no other way to write. And really, authoritarian is probably not the right term because you're not really dictating someone else's public life. You're only dictating their life within the bounds of your project. I'm not really sure what the proper word is, but either way, you get what I'm saying. How else would you ever run a project? You can't. You just can't. I got into programming because it was fun. I remember staying up late until 4 a.m. desperately trying to get my shitty GW basic code to render a character to an MS-DOS console. And I remember working on weird GUI ideas and network servers for weeks and on end just because I had an idea. I remember fighting one bug for a month only to find out it was a stupid spelling mistake. I remember that all of this, even the frustrations, was a hell of a lot of fun. Easily more entertaining than anything else I've learned. The joys of learning. I think what this really says is that some people enjoy learning. I enjoy learning. I've always enjoyed learning. I think it makes for the most fun. I just do. One thing I definitely remember was that C++ was a lot of fun. Even back in the day when it was overhyped and honestly a terrible language. It was fun because I could probably make almost anything with C++. No waiting around for someone blessed by the Python Illuminati to create the terrible wrapper around C++ project's code. I wonder, so there's two things I'm kind of taking from this paragraph, which is he's saying he's remembering back in the day that C++ was fun. One big danger is using your memory of a past time for why it was a good time, and then trying to take the past memory of something and map it onto your current state. Like, I look back on so many past things, and I have this weird, we all have it, nostalgia, right? We're all nostalgic. We all look at things, and they slowly get golden and good over time. If you really try hard, you can actually remember the things that sucked about what you were doing. Like, I still look back on Workiva as being such a great job, and there are so many great things. But then if I really sit down and think about it, I worked like 60 to 70 hours a week, and it was really, really hard. And yeah, it taught me how to be the coder that I am today, but at the same time, it also was just really, really hard because it was 60 to 70 hours of somebody else's work. It wasn't just me getting hyped up about my own project, but it was me forced to work on a team with a lot of people trying to move as fast as possible. Like, that's a very different experience. And so I look back on it fondly, despite the fact that it might not be that fond. It's just that my head does this thing, right? And second, I think there's another thing that's kind of being tossed in here that is unrelated in some sense, which is that this whole like blessed Python Illuminati, I think our world has become significantly more complicated than it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Building something now, you don't just build it. Like, the expectation when I was younger for programming was that you build the thing, right? I mean, how many people were alive and around building code like 15 years ago, 20 years ago? Like, you just built stuff. There was no just vibrant open source community that's going to hand you everything that you need. You weren't at the whims / like, you did. Like, when I thought about I got to build an image carousel, which I did. I didn't think, okay, I need to go try to find a library to do it. I thought, okay, I have to build the image carousel. Like, that's it. I'm going to go build it now, which is a very different kind of, I'd say, mindset. I would guarantee you that the average person, when they think, I'm going to go build it now, they think, I'm going to go onto Google and search for image carousel. Or I'm going to go on and search for thing, right? They don't actually build the thing. They look for a library that does the thing. Ken Wheeler mentioned, yeah. And so it's like a very different mentality. And I think that also just makes programming, in some sense, it's just a different experience. And I think there's definitely a struggle between these generations, between my generation. I assume this guy's from my generation or potentially probably a little bit older than me. He sounds like he's about 45 is what my guess is, 45 to 50. He's like a decade older than me. And my guess is that he just has the exact same experience, but even more, which is that today's world, you just feel like, oh, I have to use all these things. And then when you start using all these different libraries, you find a problem with it. And then you have to wait for someone else to fix the problem because it's very, very hard to try to get those problems pushed through. It's also called romanticizing. Yes, we already addressed that. There's a lot of romanticizing going on here. But somewhere along the way, C++ became unfun, and I think the trend continued with every language to this day. The story of C++ is a possible warning to other languages, and a story of great comeback from the dead that nobody realized happened. The C++ template metapocalypse. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I was actively using both C++ and Java until I mostly quit using C++ about the same time C++ community did this. I do meta programming. That's how I felt anyways. Just a bunch of idiots finding a new angle bracketed shaped template meta programming hammer and bashing everything nail-shaped within 100 meters. I remember insane discussions with people who thought adding two numbers with a template was faster than adding two numbers directly, even though the assembly language output was exactly the same. That can't be real. Dude, leave templates alone. Templates are great. We could all agree that metaprogramming is a good thing, but it's not a good everything. That's crazy. If you wanted to add two languages together and you thought using templates was the way you do adding two things together, like, I don't even know, where do you even come up with these ideas? How do you even come to the conclusion that this is a real thing? This obsession with using template metaprogramming for everything, combined with what I recall as a weird arrogance in C++ standard committee to refuse to make things nice for programmers, is what tainted C++ for me and many people. It became the language for architecture astronauts who cared more about the pimple pattern and metaprogramming than actually making nice language to use. Dude, so much impulse. Impl was my life. Impl was my life. Impl was my love. So to be fair though, this was 2001 to 2010. 2015, 2001 to 2015, 2020. I don't know when it ended, but it definitely started in the early 2000s. Maybe even in the late 90s. And so it's a bit unfair to think that C++ was the only one. This was like a whole zeitgeist of programming. Like, this is the clean code unintentional effect on the programming world, is that everything needs to become architecture, like everything needs to become design patterns and abstracted for the sake of making sure that it can always be used in every single possible position ever possible, and that your project may grow. You may actually have this list of 3 different outcomes, and maybe that 3 different outcomes accidentally becomes infinity. So you better be ready. You better have your strategy pattern on top of your factories. You better be able to produce out everything. Oh man, you better have your builders for your factory so that way you can produce the proper output for the strategy to be able to be called, right? It's like, at some point, something happened in programming where it's like it went from solving the problem to solving the problem of solving your problem. And I don't know when this happened, but it's all about early 2000s. Abstract factory, dude, goes hard. It goes hard. Hexagonal distributed microservices. Microservices are great when you have a bajillion users. It becomes less great the less users you have. Let's see, I can imagine what Jay Blow thinks about this. Yeah, that's why I loved Java. Sun Microsystems totally cared about programmers and what they needed. Java had a garbage collector. Java totally would never end up doing the exact same thing. No, not at all. Java programmers would never become obsessed with insane boilerplate, abstract factory visitor patterns, and caring more about standards than usability. No, never. Imagine using Java, seeing what's happened to C++ and thinking, I have a language that's even easier to do what they're doing in C++ in. It will never happen here. I mean, Java has always been boilerplate. Java is boilerplate disguised as a programming language. I think this is probably about the same time that many people my age quit using C++, and most of you probably remember an overly wordy complex language with a bunch of syntax but not a lot to gain for all the angle brackets. But C++ kept evolving, and the standard committee seemed to realize that if they don't do something, they'll become an obscure language only used by a single $10 trillion industry. How pathetic. I honestly don't even get the insult here. They did the work, improved the language dramatically, and actually made it fun again without losing their original goals. Sadly, nobody knows about this huge revolution in C++, and I'm going to update your perception of the language. Is this going to just be smart pointers? Is that what we're about to get hit with? Yo, dog, you can now manage memory easier. Smart pointers. I want you to go ahead and look at what was added in C++, added to C++ and C++ 11. Which part? C++ 11 part 1 or Electric Boogaloo? Which one? Go ahead, click that link and look at the list of insane improvements. Let's highlight a few massive ones. Auto. Yes, C++ actually added an automatic type inference word. I was shocked as you because I remember C++ being obnoxious jerk that made me type the same damn word over and over again for no reason. Null pointer, what? Yes, they fixed the bullshit C thing of this weirdly defined null that's a 0, but not a 0 because some jackass on the C standard committee still writes the code for PDP 11 that has 13.5-bit words and no 0 address. I mean, to be fair, again, you just got to remember that C++ has a lot more legacy, right? I actually don't hold anything against legacy. Because legacy, I mean, it's just like, you can't blame it for existing in the time it was. And you can't just say, oh, we're going to forget the people that have to maintain something else because we just don't care about them. Like, that's just what it is, right? Range 4, are you still reading this? Yes, it did have but you still have to go like const auto ref x. Dude, it's so stupid. It does not look like this, by the way. A for loop in C++ 11 does not, in fact, look like that. Okay? Don't even get bamboozled by this, okay? That Python has. Best of all, it works with auto. Yes, const auto ref, right? So you can loop over lists and not care about getting the type right. JavaScript still can't figure out what a for loop is, but C++ has one. Lambda expressions, what? Yes, okay. No, don't even try to do that. Okay, we all know you got to hit him with the capture group. Wait, hon. You got to hit him with the capture group. You got to stuff, and then you got to go in here and do this, okay? Don't even try. That's barely a lambda, okay? Yo, F C++. C++ lambdas, yo, F them, okay? F that. No. Hit him with that. Yeah, fuck yeah. No. Include functional. Dude, Dan is so pumped up right now. He can't even wait. Yeah, get him. Yeah, time that man out. Okay, I get that you guys all love it. I don't love it. I do not care. That is a valid lambda, though. It is a valid lambda. I've written a few lambdas in my life. Chrono, do you understand what just happened? In 2011, C++ had a better default time library than almost every language I've ever used. It's so good you could actually write 100 milliseconds to create a 100 millisecond time point. Yes, and that is valid syntax and is type safe. Okay, regex, what? Yes, C++ has built-in regex now, and they're pretty damn good, too. They do have one flaw, that it's not actually exactly like JavaScript in the ECMAScript mode, but it works really well. Okay, unique pointer, yep, there we go. These are the big ones. These are the big daddies. Yes, these implement various kinds of reference counting and enforce memory ownership. Once these were added, people largely stopped doing loads of heap allocation and instead now opt in for more on the stack, and only these pointers were needed. Is that true? With a unique pointer, you can just load it on the stack? That's the thing about C++. I didn't know to that level. I just knew unique pointers did that. Fearful concurrency? Yeah, it's definitely fearful concurrency for sure. I didn't realize with unique pointers or shared pointers, you can just have them only allocated on the stack. I don't know how that would work with shared pointers. That can't be real on shared pointers, right? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just stupid. Thread, yes. Multi-threading is baked into the language by default. What is this language? The C++ I remember said, you want threads? Write it yourself, dipshit. New C++ is saying, yeah, threads are really nice. Here you go. I mean, I think this is good for any language. Any language that really takes deeply the standard, I think is a good thing. I think that's why Go is so popular as it is. Go, you want to know if something is a valid email address? Go has it, right? You want to be able to have some sort of nice string and turning templating that also has HTTP built in? Like, Go has that. You want any of these things? Yeah, Go has that. Go has a pretty nice starting point. And I think any language that really takes seriously its standard does a great job. It's actually one of the reasons why I get really hot and bothered by Rust is any Rust project requires you to download like 150 dependencies to be able to have, like you have to build your own standard. Hey, you, go build your own standard. Get out of here. Go build the standard. Oh, you want JSON? Go get JSON. Go get Saturday and Saturday JSON. Oh, you want multi-threading? Go get Tokyo. Go get Tokyo or Crossbeam or whatever you want. You go do that. We don't want to do that. It's not for us. And I just don't really like that. Love it. I don't know if I like that. No depths, no crybabies, only men. That's right, Dan. You tell them. Tokyo and Saturday are good, though. They are good. By the way, I'm not dunking on the goodness of Tokyo or Saturday. I think Tokyo, Saturday, and Clap. I think Clap is one of the greatest libraries ever written in my whole life. I think Clap makes the greatest use of procedural macros of pretty much anything in the universe. Right? It's so good. Let's see, I honestly don't know what happened or why C++ was such a massive improvement to the language, but it reminds me a lot of ES6 and JavaScript world. Just a complete overhaul of the language philosophy and style without alienating the previous way of doing things. JavaScript's history is a much more complicated history. I think JavaScript always wanted to be this way. It's just that it got stuck a little bit on ES4. Right? Am I correct on that one? It was ES4 that kind of ruined everything. Oh, it's Microsoft and ES4. For those that don't know, Microsoft played a whole role in slowing down JavaScript and ES4. ES4 was like typed JavaScript. And those two things combined just largely explodiated. So you had Microsoft and you had ES4. And in fact, Microsoft was such a bad actor in JavaScript. In my computing ethics class in 2010, I learned about how Microsoft stymied a lot of JavaScript as like a learning experience. That was like part of my college coursing was to teach me that Microsoft bad, Microsoft evil. Yep, C++ got that, sort of. More importantly, though, C++ is now more modern language with quite a lot of things that you find in other languages. Here's a list of common things you may need. Need to traverse a file system? Check out file system. File system's actually really nice. It's great. File system's perfect. They caught up to just a nice modern file system. Need package management? Check out Conan, Messence Wrap. Still, I think this is one of the disasters of C++ is that you don't have your own yet. Right? Need a matrix library? Check out Eigen. TensorFlow is written in C++. FYI, graphics. I mean, do I need to mention that tons of games are? Yeah, I assume graphics is covered pretty well. I know Raylib's probably. I assume Raylib's C, so it probably works right away in C++. GUI. Yeah, you have Qt and WX widgets, I guess, but there's also I'm GUI. But my favorite is TUI. Yes. I believe that FTX UI is the best designed GUI library in any language. It's that good, but only for terminal UIs. Oh, I've never used that. Huh. Okay. Okay, deal. Do you mean when they tried to steal Java? They tried to do everything wrong. Microsoft is a company in which has been a barnacle on developers. And they've continued to be a barnacle on developers, and it's like happening all over again in real time in front of our face. I'm not going to get into it. Okay, I always ruffle all the feathers, and then everyone gets all upset. I don't need to have yet another talk about how Microsoft has GitHub, VS Code, and Copilot attempting to make people not even own hardware anymore, trying to push everything to the cloud, trying to own every part of development, and trying to be able to take somewhere between $10 to $100 a month from every single developer, likely charging more. And their whole goal is actually just to get you completely stuck into their environment, into their walled garden, and making you effectively feel helpless, such that you'll always have to suck from the teat of Microsoft. I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to get all hot and bothered about it. I'm just going to say that I don't think they're great for developers. Yeah, but you said fun. I can hear you now. Oh, yeah, well, Rust is really good web servers and the data structures and the standard library. Rust is just as fun as C++. Yeah, my point is not all of these new things are what makes C++ fun. The point is, so far, is this. If you believe that C++ is old and stodgy with tons of angle brackets, pointers, and this bullshit, you are wrong. I'm finding that C++ is probably going to be the most capable language in existence right now by a vast margin. Really? I mean, how many constructors are we up to? Because the rule of 5 is no longer it anymore. Now it's the rule of 7 or the rule of 9. What is it now? Does anybody know? The rule of 7 now. Yeah. Like, how many do we actually need? We have literally all the constructors. The rule of 3 to the rule of 5. Dan, you're not even up to date, Dan. Oh, damn, Dan. Dan doesn't even know. Dan, new C++ adds 2 more. Dan, did you not even know? Dan. Damn, Dan. You don't even know. Game programming. I'm in shambles. You should be. Mr. C++ game developer guy. Oh, I develop games in C++. Don't even know. I still thought it was the rule of 3. Oh, you're way off. Is there any limit? No. I think it's going to keep on going. As time goes to infinity, the rule of 3 will become the rule of infinity. Man, I'm such a fraud. You are. You're a fraud. All right. I don't think I've ran into anything I can't do. And not only that, but there's multiple options for almost anything I want to do. You've also just described JavaScript. Excluding very few problems, you've effectively just described JavaScript, and that's the reason why we have that one meme, the tea kettle JavaScript meme, right? Let's see if I could. Yeah, there you go. I mean, this is why this exists, is for this exact same reason. It's right there. This is the problem. This, my friends, is the problem of life. Tweet it. This is an old one. Imagine doing ray tracing in JS. You don't have to imagine. People already do it. There's no imagination here, my friend. My friend, not a single imagination is needed. Let's see. If I want to make a desktop app, I can hand code it myself using something like Fenster, or using something like SFML, or use Qt, or directly code it old school style. See Fenster for a good guide on doing that. If I want to play sounds, there's tons of options, from open source to paid to any kind of do-it-yourself. I made a ALSA driver once. 20 milliseconds at a time, baby. Turns out I was really bad at making it 20 milliseconds at a time. I actually had to get a real audio engineer to come help me make it work. Turns out I'm stupid. I can go grab SFML for something quick and dirty, or even pay for WYs to get the best in the industry. If I want to do 3D graphics, I can use OpenGL, Vulkan, Direct 3D. To this day, I still remember in 2008, I actually had wrist pain from how much capital it has DirectX change. Do you still have to capitalize everything? DirectX 12 API. Is everything still just completely capitalized, or have we finally gotten rid of that? Here, open. Let's just go OpenAI. Can you show me a quick example of using DirectX 12? Back in the day, DirectX 12. Why do you gotta be like that? Just let me see DirectX 12. Just let me see it. All right, let's see a nice example. Include Windows H, Whirl, D3, D12, DXGI, 1.6 standard accept vector IO stream. Let's go. There. Dude, it's already happening. It's already happening. Look at all the capital letters. Look at all those. Look at those instances. Oh my gosh. The W API, it's happening. Class. No. Dude, way too much. My gosh. Look at all those capital letters. It's like 2 decades later, and here we are. Here we are, still just look. Look at who does that? Who does this? Oh my gosh! You should see Vulkan. What is this? Why do you why do you have so much capital letters? What do you need it for? What is this? It's like you guys, it's like DirectX 12 saw sequel and decided that Squeal, they could do better. And they just made everything capitalized. The lies we tell ourselves. Dude, I'm done with that. I'm done with that crap. Get the hell out of here. Caps lock is cruise control. It is. Let's see. If I need math, there's everything from Blast to Eigen to game-specific libraries like GMTL. I wrote my own quaternions once. That was a lot of fun. My own quaternions and matrices. I was able to actually do full like rotational kind of viewing. This was back in the day before everyone's like, oh, Euler angles, right? Okay, I never read about Euler angles. Okay. I was in a graphics class and no one ever talked about them. We had to handwrite quaternions. I had to do all quaternion math by hand. Now can I do it? No. Do you need to do AI? Let's see. Did you know TensorFlow is actually written in C++? There's not a library for it. If there's not a library for it, it's not too difficult. Directly hook into almost any OS API and roll your own. Enrolling my own gear is fun. It is. Bro's correct. Rolling your own gear is fun. That's only a few examples, but the most important thing to understand is C++ doesn't really get in your way, since you have direct access to almost every library with C or C++ ABI, and also direct access to every OS. You're pretty much able to make anything you need yourself. C++ does give a fuck. Or don't. I can't tell. Because usually it's I don't, but maybe C++ does. Maybe C++ is, hey, maybe C++ feels things, okay? And maybe it's a sensitive guy, you know? All right. So you can do anything you want with C++, and the C++ Standards Committee has corrected course to focus on developer productivity since 2011. How exactly is that fun, Mr. Zed? A. Shaw? C++ is in this weird creative sweet spot where the language and the ecosystem are extremely high quality, but the language isn't popular enough to attract the weirdos who ruin languages. That's pretty great. You know who I'm talking about. Goodness gracious. Remember how I said that I left C++ because of a bunch of weirdos went insane with design patterns and template metaprogramming? Then I joked that this exact same thing happened to Java with design patterns and insane XML files. Then it happened with Ruby when Ruby on Rails became popular. Then it happened with Python and JavaScript and Rust, and pretty much every time a language gets popular, there's those insufferable idiots who ruin languages. You see, C++ is unfashionable now, so the morons who don't care about it. So those morons don't care about it. C++ is unfashionable. Even the White House hates it. So all those authoritarian douchebags who run around smashing you over the head with standards documents have fled to languages where they can peddle their bullshit influencer garbage. Yes. Yes. Oh, I just got raided. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that raid. Like, what a time to come straight in. He's talking about you, by the way. Yeah, right. Bro, I can't even read, let alone have a standards document. What are you talking about? This is fantastic. Those idiots are in your mentions, yelling at people, why don't you use Rust? They're the ones who shame you with, why don't you use React? They're the ones screaming, why are you using so much unsafe in your Rust code? They're the ones who scream, seriously, a for loop in Ruby code? Amateur. Thankfully, C++ is not popular enough for those grifters to profit, so they mostly ignore it. Didn't I just see something like this? Hold on, I'm going to go to Dax. I like Dax, so sorry, Dax. I'm not trying to dunk on you, Dax, but this is it. Dax. I swear I just saw it. Did I not? The worst take about the web is that you should not use JS, React, etc. because HTML alone is good enough. This is the austerity mind virus of 1995. This is the official use C++ or use React. You don't use it, you're actually hating it. You're actually hating your own life. Well, I think this actually is spawned off. I actually think that this tweet is actually spawned from htmx.org. Because htmx.org said, oh yeah, did this one, right? You should not use React.js, etc. because HTML alone is good enough, by the way. That's so good. This is so good. It's so good that those two things are existing at the exact same timeline. Well, actually, the Rust weirdos will bother you, but they're usually too busy making the borrow checker happy to actually get anything done, so you can ignore them. I mean, to be completely fair, when you get good enough with Rust, the borrow checker is not even a thing. You kind of adopt a certain mentality when programming with Rust, and then it kind of goes away, and then you do something with async, and you hate your life, and then you have to go read stuff about pin, and you still don't quite understand pin, and why is there phantom data? We don't know. This means that C++, the language, and C++, the community, simply does not give a fuck. What do you do? Do you want to write a matrix library? Go for it. You want to make a GUI library? Go for it. You want to write a game engine? Sit on your couch in the dark and go for it. How about weird game that watches you code and makes fun of you? Seriously, nobody cares, and most people think it's hilarious or fun. The DGAF is essentially for creativity. Bud Zed, we don't need a great, glorious leader to tell us how best to behave. Won't C++ lack the authoritarian, benevolent dictator for life leave you without direction? Won't you make, dare I say, mistakes? How can you possibly survive without a BDFL grifter shaming you into working for them for free? I mean, I think you're probably not saying this exactly, but you're definitely saying it tangentially. This mentality is one of the biggest reasons why other languages are not fun. Other languages are strictly controlled by organizations that actively shit on you if you try to make something cool. Okay, what is this link? I gotta look at this. Oh yeah, I remember this. I remember when Shepherd's Oasis made something super cool and then got taken off the speaker list. I remember this dude. This guy is like so smart and makes such cool stuff and was talking about comp time for Rust and that gets removed. Man, what a cool guy too. Like out of all people to kick off, you actually kick off a pretty cool dude. Like that's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I firmly believe that for creativity to blossom, you need to be able to get your idea without fear of criticism or shame. Let's see, and shame. You have to be able to express yourself, and only after you've pulled your idea out of your body, kicking and screaming, you can step back and look at it critically. However, once you get your idea out there, you better be ready to critique it before someone else does. It's this change in modes from creative freedom from criticism to highly focused on quality that makes for great creative work. I think HTMX, again, I think HTMX does the best thing. I don't know if you know this, but there's this kind of exercise. He's a professor, by the way, the HTMX guy. He does this exercise where there's this series of papers that were written. They were actually written by one person, and it's actually two sides to arguments going back and forth, and it's a series of papers. And he makes his students read these two papers and then decide who they agree with more and then why the other person is wrong. And then the big reveal at the end is it's actually the same person who wrote both sides of these papers. And it's because you should be able to critically think about your own stuff and you should be able to argue why something is good or bad. I think this is actually a really good mentality to have. You make what you make, and then you got to be able to actually work through and fight yourself on why it's good, right? It's a cool exercise. It's a really good exercise just to actually write why it's like so bad. Just argue with the rubber duck. Yeah, the best explanation of this concept comes from a painting teacher I used to have. Actually, this was every painting teacher I've ever had. They would walk over to a student's unfinished work and try to correct it. They'd annoyingly stand in the wrong place, usually their 5-foot tall eyes versus my 6'2" tall eyes, and say my drawing is wrong even though their perspective is totally different from mine. Or they'd comment on some aspect of the in-progress work that was difficult to judge because it wasn't shown in the context of the full painting. Okay, so I will say this then. This guy does sound like he has a bit of a problem taking some feedback. You know, you should always just take feedback from people who are much better than you and try to understand what they're saying, because perhaps what you understand versus what they understand are completely different. Yeah, these painting teachers, they keep telling me that I'm doing something wrong, and I'm just like, dog, you're 5 foot tall. I'm 6'2". Okay, I'm towering over you. You just don't understand. Did he fail at art school? Nothing but bad stuff coming in. I know that's kind of a wild take, by the way. My mom was a really great painter, and then she went to class to go do paintings. And she learned a bunch of stuff from going to these paintings, and she would just listen to them, despite often being better than the painting teacher themselves. She was like, how do I get better? Right? She was really, really good. She still probably is. She just hasn't painted in 15 years. The mistake these teachers made was that they assumed a mistake earlier couldn't be corrected as you go, and would say a mistake in the final, and would stay a mistake in the final work. It's entirely possible that what the student finally creates ends up working just fine when it's finished, but in the middle of the process, nothing looks right, so trying to correct it is pointless. I mean, I don't know where this is going, but isn't that like the whole point of realizing something is wrong is that you try to correct it? This part doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like angry Bob Ross. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Bob Ross, when something goes wrong, it's like, let's take the wrong and try to make it right. This one is saying, don't ever call out the wrong, which is different. Like, I much more prefer the Bob Ross type of things. You just build what you got to build, and when you realize something's wrong, you try to internalize it and come up with a reason to make it or try to make it into something good. Right? This is an important thing about creativity these teachers didn't realize. Everything looks and feels like crap in the ugly middle stage. In the beginning, things will seem great, but as you work, everything gets messy because you're reshaping and moving everything around to reach your final vision. It's more like walking a tightrope than driving a car, where you're balancing on a thin line trying to reach the other side. And the only way you learn to walk a tightrope is to fall over and over until you get your balance right. I don't know, this whole painting side of things, I'm not too sure how I feel about it. It just feels like a pretty kind of odd critique, because the one problem that I have with this critique is that the person who is creating it has ultimately the best understanding for what makes something good or bad, and that everybody else can't understand what is good or bad. This assumes that any experience other than the person writing it is not good enough. I think that people, even if they're not even involved, can actually have really good insights into things, despite the fact that they may not know anything about it, right? Sometimes I listen to you guys while I'm programming, and you guys say things, and I know you guys don't know what you're talking about, but every now and then when you say something, it kind of like ticks something in my head and go, oh, okay, I can see how these things work. yeah, that's, oh, shoot, I'm here. You can't get rid of me. I'm not trying to get rid of you, Bisco. Thank you for the 67 months. Yeah. A better analogy might be not to optimize early. Yeah. I talked to a plumber about my programming problems, and he helps a lot. Hey, plumber, I got some questions. Let's see. A lot of other languages feel like people constantly trying to push you off the tightrope midway just so they can sell you a car instead. To be fair, what I think a lot of people are trying to do, like even the Guillermo tweet, whatever, I think this tweet right here, I genuinely believe that this actually comes from a good place, that these are two perspectives of the same problem, and these both come from a place where they feel like they've gotten it more right. And so it's like, I actually don't look at these as someone trying to push me into something, but someone saying, hey, this is how I've been burned. This is the better way to approach things. C++ is nearly unlimited space to create, combined with relative lack of shame grifters, makes it an incredibly creative experience. If I had an idea, I'm only limited by my skills, not by the limitations of the language or some C++ blowhard influencer declaring me unqualified to teach, because I don't like his benevolent dictator for life. Okay, which one is this one? Let's see. I think I should petition the moderators of Learn Python to remove Zed's book from Wiki. Oh, this is Zed right here. This is Zed getting owned right here. Oh, yeah. Zed Shaw might just be the most stubborn person ever to write a line of code, and there's a lot of competition there. Edit to address some various comments down thread. I've been considering this for a while. I'm advocating for teaching 3x to new beginners. But the bit where he abused a nonsense argument about Turing completeness, like that was really the last straw. Okay, so looks like Zed's not liked on the internet. I could understand probably some of the arguments against it. He seems like a pretty intense guy. Coders, again, dude, coders cannot get along. It is just a fact of life. I don't know what it is. I don't know what this is. C++ nearly unlimited space to create, combined with the relative lack of shame grifters, makes an incredibly creative space. Oh, I already read all this. C++ reference.com is amazing. I think C++ reference.com is the best programming language documentation I've ever used. It has nearly every single thing I believe languages need except for one. Let's see, except for one. Every single keyword in library is fully documented with reference material. Every one of these had an extensive working examples. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, these are all just stuff I don't really care about C++ reference.com, but fantastic. The only thing missing from C++ reference.com is documentation is how to install various compilers on different platforms. I'm kind of mixed on whether they should do this or not. For other languages, this kind of documentation is very important, but for C++, I think they most likely would get pushback from various members, cough, cough, Microsoft, and probably can't. However, get Microsoft. And given that there's only a few C++ compilers and a few platforms, it's entirely possible they could add a series of getting started guides. It's not all puppies and butterflies. While I'm having an absolute blast coding C++, I want to understand that I do not in no way think the language is without flaws, not even close. My thinking is C++ is now about as good as any other language out there, and that no language is perfect. You'll have annoying things to deal with in C++ just as you have in any other language. It's just C++ annoying things are different. I think how, honestly, I'm just going to throw this out here. I think I'm reading this as this guy was a part of, say, Python, and he's kind of been burned by Python, by people getting upset at him, and now he's just like really upset about all these things. And he's just looking for a language that doesn't have that. But whenever you do anything in public, it does not matter what it is. You do anything in public, you will get pushback. Someone else will tell you why you're wrong. People will always push against you, and I guarantee you in C++, it's not only is it not going to be any different, I think there are more people in C++ that act like that. I cannot tell you the amount of bike shedding I've seen, at least in my personal C++ experience. People really be like, oh, well, you should have used this version instead of this version. You know, like, I don't see how this does not exist. If you want to be in the public eye, you should just understand that no matter what you say or what you do will be pushed back against every single time, right? I hear PHP devs are very welcoming. As far as I can tell, PHP is the nicest community there is out there, potentially, or OCaml. OCaml or PHP seems like the nicest two communities as far as I can tell. For example, in C++, it's a real pain in the ass to get a non-Microsoft installer working on Windows. No, MSYS2 does not work. MSYS2 is hot garbage, so shut up. I had to create a whole set of PowerShell scripts just to make installing compilers and dev tools easier. Just don't work on Windows. And if you think that's terrible, then why are you using Python? If you try to install any Python on Windows, you have to deal with the installers not adding Python to the path unless it's a blessed installer from Microsoft or ActiveState, then the installers are allowed to add Python to the path on Windows. I don't know. I haven't dealt with Windows development in so long. I can't remember any of these problems. I just remember having a lot of problems. That's it. You see, C++ wins here because I don't have to deal with some arbitrary backroom dealing that gave Microsoft and ActiveState a free pass to violate the apparent law that no Python installer shall use the path. That alone is a massive win for me. It's not fun to have to argue with idiots who think the situation is normal in Python. If you think your language is superior, give me about 1 hour and I'll find enough irritating bullshit to make your language look like a pathetic usability nightmare. They all suck. It's just C++'s suckage doesn't seem to ruin its fun. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I would say any long-lived C++ project is hot garbage and is not fun. Okay, you know how many times I've spent so much time trying to figure out the differences between these like define macros and templates? Yeah, it's pretty elitist. I would say that they all suck. And this, dude, come on. Honestly, if you're going to make this argument, I'm going to say something that's real controversial. If you're going to make this argument, honestly, JavaScript's probably the most fun. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to worry about anything. And you just go on and build whatever you want to build, and you debug your way out of it. Right? You're not held down by anything. Right? Just to be completely real, you're literally held by nothing, and you can build anything you want. Now, is it a great language? Does it scale well? Do you have a lot of problems later on? Sure, but there's nothing inherently about the language. It's really just your design ability. That's all it is. Go's also fun. You just build and you run, and it's great. Ape now think, ape do. Yeah. Just saying. I'm just saying, if you're gonna pick a language that is just really easy just to run with, I mean, that's a language you can just kind of do whatever you think you should do, and it just kind of works for a long time. You can build like 10,000 lines of JavaScript, and it just kind of works. It starts to fall apart and it starts to get really annoying, but it's just still also kind of works, you know? Just a few pain points I have with C++ currently are 95% of compiler errors are the worst in the entire industry. Yes. Well, there's also linker errors, which are just insanity. I'm not even being hyperbolic here. C++ error messages are just the worst. I think if the standards committee wants to make a biggest impact, it'd create a standard for error messages because the current state of error messages is almost malicious. It is. Build tools are so bad. I have no idea why C++ build tools are just nightmares to use, but the people who make them are, oh my goodness, but the people who make them just make the dumbest decisions. I don't know if they're making the dumbest decisions because I don't know how many different legacies and things they have to deal with. I think that's one of the problems that that it's really hard to see here is that all modern things are built with no legacy ever, right? Zig makes a great tool. Zig makes a great tool. It's true. The best one I found so far is Mason, and it's full of idiotic decisions like ignoring installed packages directives to use broken system libraries without telling you. I've literally ran into this the day I wrote this essay, and it was infuriating. There's no incentive for compiler manufacturers to follow the standard. I've mentioned that Clang as a bug in standard source location, and it's a great example of the kinds of crap you run into sometimes. I really think the standard committee needs to start listing compilers that leave bugs like this unfixed. Just a simple page that lists compilers and how compliant they are, with special callouts for compilers that have obvious bugs would do a lot. The language is insanely complex because of its history. Yes. C++ does have a ton of legacy stuff that you have to wade through to find the nuggets. My understanding is that it's kind of like C++ is 3 or more languages, similar to JavaScript. You have the old style where almost everything is heap allocated in raw pointers for, are everything. Then you have template metapocalypse style. Then you have post-2011 style where everything is on the stack and very few pointers. I'm seeing a newer style where everyone just uses struct instead of class and doesn't use a lot of inheritance. Navigating all these eras of C++ can be daunting, and there's more than a few code review YouTubers who seem to be stuck in one era or another. Oh, I'm sure there is. Even if you use ChatGPT will still give me old style Node stuff. Like, have you ever tried that? Have you ever played with ChatGPT and asked it to give you like a quick piece of Node code, and it produces that old one where it like calls utils to do inheritance via like prototypal behavior? Like, it's really strange. You're like, what am I even looking at? And it's because it's like, welcome to JavaScript, where every 5 years, there's a whole new style. This next statement's going to be really bizarre. I hope that you guys are ready for this next statement. By the way, thank you, everybody, for all the subs so far. Really appreciate that. Let me finish this up, French Monkey, and then I'll get to the thank yous. I really hate RAID. That's a statement that feels kind of crazy. I'm finding that there's tons of situations where RAID gets in the way of the real-world configuration situations, to the point that this one feature of C++ seems more like a glitch than actually useful things. In my opinion, given how so many other languages don't have this at all and are just fine, C++ could do well to devise a middle ground between the current array and the initialization constructors other languages have. Dude, just one more constructor, bro. Bro, just one more constructor. Just one more constructor, and it's going to be perfect. That's all we need. Rule of 7? No. Rule of 8. We need one more. Just one more. Should have left that last one out. Yeah. For the most part, Ray is very, very useful. You should just be able to identify, or you want to be able to grab something and initialize it at the same time. Like, I don't see any other way to go about stuff. Anyways, but that's for another essay. For now, I just wanted to express how much fun I'm having doing dumb stuff in C++ and hopefully educate people that C++ isn't the language you think it is. If you ever see a course that tries to shame C++ with the billion angle brackets, just know that the author of that course is a clueless moron who has no idea what they're talking about. I mean, check out this GUI layer code from FXTUI. Hey, capture all the things. I actually honestly don't know what this means. It looks like a closure, but it doesn't have the little. It doesn't have this thing. So I don't, the parentheses, so I don't really know what this means. To me, this looks like a capture group. A capture group into what? What the hell is this thing? It's a lambda that captures anything it needs by reference. Yes, but where's the parentheses? I thought lambdas had parentheses. Oh, parentheses are optional. Wow. I did not know that. Okay. Wow. Jeez. Okay. So I knew that part. I already knew this thing. Hbox, hflow. So is this another? Is this a list? Is this supposed to be a list? Is that a list? It's an array. It's a constructor list. Yeah, I thought it was a constructor list, right? No? It's a layout mechanism on terminal. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Text format, this border. I assume this is these are just numbers. These are just bits coming in, right? Text status. Well, actually, I don't know how these are coming in. I don't know how this is just a bit. I mean, this looks like bitwise stuff. I don't really know what that means. There must be a special operator that does this right here for them. Okay, fantastic. Separator, Hbox. Okay, this is pretty cool. I'm fine with this. I will say that this is the pipe operator. Yeah, it's just a pipe operator. In my head, it's like, bits. But then I'm like, this can't be bits because it's even saying the format of text. So obviously it can't be bits. It is bits technically in the end, but you know what I mean. So I'm not going to lie to you. When you say, like, look at how easy this is, this doesn't necessarily feel easy, but it does look pretty in some weird kind of way. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It looks funny to the untrained eye. Because I think to the untrained person, there's a lot of implicit knowledge going on here. Like, I knew that this was some sort of capture. I knew this was like capture everything by reference, but I didn't understand, like, oh, okay, you can, I didn't even know that parentheses are optional. I knew this was some sort of list type thing. Apparently it's some initializer, blah, 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 blah. Nonetheless, I think sometimes this could be a lot for someone to digest for the first time. So anyways, be honest. If you didn't know this was C++, you could have, let's see, could you guess what language it was? I rest my case. Yes, I could have. I believe this was C++ the moment I saw this. Also, trailing underscores, crazy naming convention. Crazy naming convention, trailing underscores. Can someone explain the rationale behind trailing underscores? Yes, one does not need this except for in C++. Yeah, I thought this was... To avoid this, explain more. How does that avoid this? What does that thing do? Everything that's inside the lambda gets captured by reference. Space out the dot notation. I do trailing underscores. It is something I like, something like 2play or something. I've never seen that before. Stares at this username. What is it? Can somebody... This member versus member. Member virals. So it's member variables. Okay, so this is... I thought... Okay, so this is, again, one of those things I hate. Okay, it's another way of doing that. Okay, yes. Okay, so I this is one of those things I just tend to hate, which is you encode semantic meaning into your variables. Honestly, to me, this is what died with an LSP. You shouldn't have to do that. You should just be able to go like K, and it will tell you something about it. You can jump to definitions and then go, oh, okay, it's like that, right? Like I don't really understand. Yeah, member variables are like this. Yes, exactly. So for me, I don't really like seeing that stuff. It's to avoid name collision with parameters. Well, no, because people use M underscore this and all that. And what? I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I just do not believe in it. I'm just not going to believe it. It's cursed like Hungarian notation. Yeah, it's from a bygone era, right? That's not enforced. Of course it's not. Of course it's not enforced. It's not enforced. I don't think trailing are that common though. Yeah, well, trailing or M underscore or S underscore. Like, to me, these are just signs of, like, we already have tools now that kind of fixes this entire thing. And so it's like you don't need those anymore. They're non-existent. I can see a reason, at least for this one being more true, because it's like this is available for a lot of stuff. So not to actually have any sort of name collision, we're going to put S in front of it just because it makes it easier to not have any name collision. So I could see that. They've already mentioned this, but it's Google style and very much used in Chromium, for example. Yeah, I believe this. As somebody who worked with somebody who worked on the Google on V8, we had a lot of talks about why my variable naming wasn't up to standards. Standards being M underscore and S underscore. We had a lot of talks about that. I know all about that bad boy. Okay, well, anyways, fantastic, great article. I think this is kind of a common thing that I would really like stopping in our industry, which is that everybody else is wrong, but I am right. The thing is that we all think that. To be completely fair, we all think that. I'm gonna side with this guy over this guy. The thing is that I do fully believe that there's stuff I don't understand, and maybe someone else's perspective can change the way I program, because obviously at one point I thought using Vim was for old, stupid men who didn't know what they were doing. Like, I honestly thought that they were just a bunch of neckbeards complaining about life. And so I realized that, I contain a lot of wrong opinions. Still is. Well, I'm now an old man with a neckbeard. And so I try not to go full attack against people in every last thing that they think, because I think that there is a lot of value in seeing problems from different angles. Now, I personally am just not a fan of React. I'm just not going to be a fan of React. When you say, hey, you have to build something with a UI library, I'm going to choose Svelte or Solid over React. I'm just not going to use React. I don't like React. I think it's clunky and I think it's blah. That's just me personally. I just don't like it. Yeah, boo React. I know. It's industry standard. Yeah, like, I hate that phrase, right? It's industry standard because people get wrapped up in these things. And I think building with React is stupid. I think it's a bad plan from the beginning. But I've seen a lot of great things built with React. While React pays the bills, I like it. Exactly. And so I'm going to try not to be like too dunky on things, though I'm still going to say I hate it. But nonetheless, this comes from the opinion that this is the one right way. I don't know. Somehow someone built a roller coaster in Excel. Perhaps there's more than one way to skin this program. Anyways, love it, like it, appreciate it. I don't care. I don't know if this Zed fella is doing himself any solids by being too wrapped up in this stuff. But he is right. Shepherd Oasis did get kicked out of the Rust stuff because he had great ideas and they hated it. Right? I think that this was probably the most tragic thing. This is probably the most tragic decision of all time made by anything ever. The name is the Primogen.